Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case, and welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. As said, you can share your thoughts and ideas as we go along in the video. What do you think of this and that? And you can talk about other stuff as well. So, as said previously, I did cover a little bit of the recent interview by the East Idaho News Channel of Candice and Justin, the parents of Dylan Rounds. If you haven't already, make sure to check that one out, because I'm not going to be including that portion within this video because there's no point repeating myself. So make sure to click on that video right now if you haven't already, because it does talk about a critical, very important point and observation theory. Okay, so moving on, in this video going to be doing kind of like an overall response analysis of the recent interview on the East Idaho News Channel. Now, I've done previous ones in the past, maybe not as long, maybe the videos weren't as long, and it was more to do with the body language. If you haven't checked them out, make sure to do so to understand where we're at, to get an idea of change, how they appear, their behaviour, as a whole. So you can see before and after, and then you can compare yourself, okay? Leave your thoughts as well in the chat as well. Do you think there's been a change in behaviour by the parents? Does anything stand out to you, genuine or dodgy, and so on? This video, not focusing as much on body language, but more on the bullet points of the points and issues raised, mentioned by Candice. There's like a timeline throughout and how things have evolved and developed, or at least how the lack of action has occurred. And it might fill in some blank spots as well. So let's get into it right now. So to begin with, the opening, and I'll just share with you just a brief body language analysis, okay? So, I don't know why I'm doing such a deep breath, so intense, man. Anyway, when you look at the beginning, the opening, there seems to be more activity than previous interviews in terms of body language, movement, eye contact, facial expressions. It seems more heightened this time, but it might be adrenaline within. It might be numerous reasons. But let me just share with you a quick clip now or two of what I mean.
How are you guys doing?
We're holding up, pushing forward. Just keep them focused.
So you can let me know your thoughts, compared to previous interview starters, she's spoken kind of calm, not as expressionate, straight with the face, but this time she seemed a bit more movement going on. That could be nervousness, as said, it could be adrenaline, it could be that build up after all this time waiting to, publicly say out loud what's gone on, how incompetent police, law enforcement have been, all in that moment. So that could explain to why they are the way they are. Later on in the video, you might see here and there, and if you don't, you can check the original video out, but there's times where she seems to smirk or smile, It's one of those things where people could interpret it as, is she being cocky? Is she revealing something, being a bit suspicious? Or is it more to do with just the fact that it's like, this is a joke, where you kind of laugh in a sarcastic way because something is so stupid or messed up. And if you tie it with the actions of the police or the lack of action and the way things have been treated, the overall situation not being normal, sometimes you tend to laugh at times. Sometimes it can be hysterical laughter, and it's not, the normal thing, but in a certain unnormal or abnormal circumstance, it's to be expected, that type of response. So you've got to take it slow when observing this behaviour. In terms of the father, he's a bit more talkative this time round, but he's still quite laid back, still quite calm and relaxed, so not much of change there. And yeah, that's all I can really say about the body language. I said it's not all about it in this video. It's more to do with, you know, the bullet points and stuff. And we can start off already, okay? So this might fill in the odd blank spot in people's minds, okay? It made me understand the situation of the first part, and it's to do with Box Elder County, you know, the incompetent police department. You've got the other one, is it just called Elder County, who were okay, but Box Elder County have been the ones responsible for making a mess up of the mystery, dealing and handling it with the lack of communication and transparency, as what was said in a previous interview. So they're the ones responsible for that. Now, the beginning of the Dylan Rounds case, when the investigation begun and police got involved, I was wondering who was responsible back then for the investigation, because if you remember, back then at the start, the mother had enough of the police and how they were, you know, dealing with the case, if you remember. And then that's when she started reaching out to YouTubers, private investigators, news channels, informal, formal interviews, you know, that sort of stuff. So that makes sense there. And it was Box Elder County, as Candice stated. Box Elder County were there from day one up until now. So when we heard about the incompetence by a police department back then, it was Box Elder County, the same people responsible in recent time for the investigation of Jim Brenner's trailer property in Montello. So they've been there all the way through. And if we know they're incompetent or there's a lack of action, we saw it back at the start and we've seen it in recent time, then everything in between is probably likely the same. Hence why overall there hasn't been too much progress made within the case. And at times where it feels like steps have been made going forwards, then we've gone backwards, like with the Jim Brenner's property investigation. Thought we're onto something, then turned out to be a dead end, and so on. So you get an idea there as an overall picture of who's been involved since day one. Now, from the looks of it, the FBI weren't there day one. They stepped in at a later point when Candice, you know, started having enough of the LE. So the FBI stood in, but not took control, because they couldn't, but they were like on the sideline assisting her, like the odd agent reaching out to her at times to interview her, to inform her about stuff, whether it was done right at the time or a bit late. That's what happened. We saw an example with Jim Brenner's, was it Jim Brenner? Yeah, Jim Brenner's court case. Not the upcoming one in October, but a previous like hearing or something. And Candice didn't know about it immediately, but an FBI agent came in and informed her. So that's like the level of communication and action with the FBI side. Preferably, it'd probably be more useful if the FBI did step in as a whole, but that's not able to happen at the moment, okay? So what do we need to move on to next? Well, I've got the odd few little timestamps here just so I can, you know, keep up with it, okay? So there was talks about Jim Brenner, okay? His name, you know, mentioned here and there throughout the interview, but one of the key points made was, you know, the arrest on him. He could have been taken in, arrested from the beginning. This clip explains.
What people need to know is Brenner had an arrest warrant at this time. Yes. Box Elder County knew this. He could have been arrested day one. I believe it would have been the 10th. It was the day I was in Elko. I believe it was June 10th. They finally arrested him on that warrant. So,
as you heard in that news report, Jim Brenner was arrested June 10th, though he could and he should have been arrested sooner. Now, what does it highlight? it highlights irresponsibility, recklessness, not professional, not sticking to the procedure. You know, they know they can arrest him, but they decide not to immediately. It does make you think, I wonder why. Why are they stalling things? And this is Box Elder County, the same people that stalled the boots being taken to the lab for DNA testing. They stalled that as well. It's like when evidence is found or when people are associated with one another, that police department don't want progression to be made, and they'll do as much as possible to drag things out, to delay, to postpone, to throw things aside, to play down stuff, the importance. So what, somebody gets away with it? It seems as if the police are covering for Jim Brenner in a way, at least at that time, because it's like, it's a no-brainer. If there's someone dangerous out there and they've been described as a danger to life and the community around, already got criminal backstory, and you can arrest them, then you should do it at that point, at that time. It makes no sense to not do that. So let me know your thoughts in the chat about all that. It's just a bit weird, isn't it? Now, I mean, the way it's worded, it could be a little bit dramatic, just a little bit, because this is the thing. Jim Brenner is in jail right now, and he has been for a bit, but it could have been done sooner. Though, if it was done sooner, would it have led to any benefits? No. If somebody got hurt in between Brenner being free, walking around and not being imprisoned, and he hurt someone, somebody else, a stranger, a local, then that person's life could have been saved if the police acted sooner. But from my memory, nobody else got hurt in between. So really, it's just a case of should have been done sooner, should have been more professional by the police side, and that's it. Because you got to understand, if he was arrested immediately, it wouldn't have made any difference to Dylan's outcome, because this is after Dylan's gone missing, okay? And from the way Box Elder County have handled everything else, the way they've delayed stuff, dragged things out, not been so clear, been incompetent at times, I don't think it would have really made a difference. Unless let's just say now, Jim confessed and said where Dylan was. But too late to find Dylan alive. Let's say he was held captive and Jim said, he's in this direction. They go there, he's dead. That's it. If Jim confessed earlier, sooner, and he was arrested sooner, at the time when Dylan went missing, there might have been a higher chance that if they did go to that location, Dylan might still be alive. That's a situational theory-based language used then, okay? I hope you understand that. So, with that in mind, was there anything else that occurred in between that? Well, kind of. You know, to do with the police presence at the start, the LE, Box Elder, when they went on the land round Dylan's grain shed, at the time of when Jim Brenner was squatting on that land within the area. I don't think he was forced to move away or told he had to move out of the trailer. He remained there during the investigation and the search and rescue up until he was arrested, and then later on arrested again. Makes a bit more sense shortly, okay? So with that in mind, it was Box Elder County that found Dylan's boots, and as said, they delayed things, the whole lab DNA testing. It'll make a bit more sense about that later on in this video, in the interview about those boots. We will return to that key point because there's some other stuff to talk about, okay? But originally, it was delayed. The stuff was delayed, okay, chat? Just hold on, bear with me. So, whilst that was going on and everything was happening, whether there is lots of evidence found or not, whether that hole in the grain shed was caused by them at the time, which Salty Pancakes documented at a later point in time. With the search and rescue, they came in. Now, I've heard of search and rescue before, volunteers, I guess volunteers and this and that to certain services and stuff, people offering up their free time. Maybe not complete general public, it might be people who are a part, maybe the fire department, medical, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I've seen it as search and rescue being volunteers and other times it's not and it's official. Whichever one it was, they were there at the time, early on, during, the investigation, and they were searching the area when Brenner was squatting on that land. Now, at some point, not too long after, they had to move base, as Candice says in the interview. The reason why they had to move was because annoying Brenner. Brenner was getting annoyed with all the people around. I mean, it makes sense in a way, if he's in the middle of nowhere, peace, quiet, and then next thing you know, masses and groups of people prodding around within the area. It probably is a bit annoying if you're not used to it or you don't like that many people around. But then again, if the person's dodgy, they're squatting there when they shouldn't be, it's their fault, not the search and rescue. But regardless, search and rescue moved on because they didn't want to annoy Brenner. It does make you think though, if they stuck around, what would Brenner have done? Could indirectly he might have revealed his dark side. When you prod someone to get a reaction as a form of evidence to prove a point, to prove what they're capable of, their temper, their anger, their actions and response, it might have been useful if the search and rescue was still around, or the police at the same time. Because he gets frustrated, he might pull a gun out, he might threaten people, and then that would lead to a faster, supposedly a faster arrest, and it might tie more with Dylan. You know what I'm saying? That response, that aggression with him, witnesses actually seeing it on the property too, tying it to that's how he could have been with Dylan at that time if he was pushed. So it's worth taking that in mind. Now, is there anything else? Yes, but I just want to refer back to the boots. The way Candice said that the Ellie, when they found the boots, they just chucked them on the back of a truck. I guess an evidence truck, some kind of vehicle which holds evidence. But it's the way they disregarded it at the time, boots found, supposedly of Dylan's, with his blood on them. As I said, we will get to that later, okay? But yes, they just chucked them on the back of the vehicle. That shows, disregard. It shows that it's not a high priority when it should be. If the LE of Box Elder treats evidence like that, important evidence, the stuff that's high up there which could lead to some kind of conviction, lead to evidence, lead to a finding of Dylan or the suspect, and they treat it with not much care and delay it as well, there's no hope, is there? Because I see it as the ladder effect. If it's shit at the top, so like with evidence being high priority and it's treated as low priority, then everything below that is going to be completely disregarded. So you haven't really got a leg to stand on. So I just wanted to add that point in as well from what Candy said about the boots. So that's not great. Now linking back to the search and rescue, yes, they moved to Lucin Pond. If you don't know what Lucin Pond is, it's 5 miles east and it's at Dylan's farm. Not his grain shed, his farm, his place of living, where his trailer is, where his Ford F-150 burgundy coloured Raptor was found parked up, okay? So the pond, it's literally a pond, square rectangle. You may have seen it on some of my previous map analysis videos. It's just like that. And then in the middle, water, but depending on the time, the weather, it could be dried up, okay? Search and rescue were looking in that area, looking around. Didn't really find anything. They sent, I don't know if they sent a diver or just a search and rescue member into the pond. Depends if it's filled up or not, or how deep it is. But regardless, some people went into that pond and they didn't find anything either. They didn't find Dylan in there, and as well, previous when they were on at the grain shed, 5 miles west, back that way, they didn't find Dylan in the grain truck either. So that basically rules that out, okay? Now, what do we move on to next? As I said, you can share your thoughts as we go along in the chat. There's no rush. Just leave your opinions, okay? You know, you might have a better idea. You might be able to pick out on something I haven't picked out on. Bear in mind, I'm only showing limited footage. I know some people might be, or might find me just sat here talking a little boring, but I'm just taking into mind that, you know, you can't use lots of footage of someone's video because it just isn't quite right, but at the same time because of copyright and all that, so you got to take that into mind, okay? Apologies about any background sound. There isn't much I can do about that. This is the consequence for being in this, you know, environment. I make it sound like I'm in a different country, but no, just like went outside in the garden, okay? You're getting all the planes coming in. I'm surprised no squirrels have, you know, jumped in yet, scuttling around. Any birds screeching. I think someone's using some kind of equipment outside, so that's all annoying. But anyway, let's just return back to this whole case and mystery. Hopefully you can hear me as I'm talking. So the SAR, search and rescue, most of them pulled out, you know, after looking at the pond in Lucin, Dylan's property. It was like, yeah, we're done. That's what Candice said. They pulled out like that. But she did say that a couple of people remained and continued looking, and they did a good job, I guess, covering the area and other stuff too. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Now, let's just move on to, well, I said I wasn't going to really mention it, okay? But there is a few little points that maybe weren't mentioned as clear. Okay. So previous video, I talked about, and this is incorporated in this video because it's the same interview, okay? So Candice said she received a call saying that Dylan was in Montello, held hostage, okay? I was under the assumption that it was Chase Venstra responsible for that, but supposedly it was Robert Aviles, a person who does know Jim Brenner in some way. I can get into a future video about that, okay? So yeah, what happened then after receiving that call? Well, the parents obviously reached out to the LE, Box Elder County, telling them about it. And do you know what their response was? They said, good luck. That was it. You can check the video yourself. That's exactly what was said from Candice's mouth. Good luck. It's no surprise though, because when you look back already at the way they disregarded certain things like the boots, like Brenner's arrest and the warrant, the way they delayed it, the way they thought, nah, it's not that important. You know, there was suspicion that, okay, maybe the police are working with Brenner or some of the criminals, they're covering for them. And like with this, there is supposedly a phone call, genuine at the time before finding out it was a dud call, a false lead. The way they just said, good luck. Translating that from language would mean basically it's, okay, you go off and do it. We're not interested. Have fun. Try your best, but we don't want anything to do with it ourselves. Bye. That's exactly what it means. good luck with that can be said in positive situations, negative situations, and in between. Either way, it's, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want, to get involved. You go off and do it yourself, and that's it. That's exactly what it means. So, obviously the parents did eventually go down there, but they still wanted police to do a formal arrest under that idea that Dylan is down there and there is a criminal. Manpower backup, just in case things get a bit rough, a bit violent, you never know. And despite trying to tell Box Elder County, come on, come down, no, they wouldn't. So from what Candice said, Candice just phoned 911, the police. Now, I don't know how it works in America. I don't know if it's you phone 911 and it rings the nearest police station, or there is an overall police station in the US, and then that branches out to different states. I don't know how it exactly works, but whoever Candice called, it wasn't Box Elder County because she already tried with them. So she reached out 911, told them the situation. They weren't aware of it, okay, because Box Elder County never told the police. Sounds a bit weird that the police never told the police. I guess you could word it as the county area of that police department didn't inform the overall police department within the state, the area, whatever. So with those operators listening to what Candice has to say at the time, that Montello, my son's held hostage there, they don't know the full story. They don't know how to act appropriately. Not that they're messed up, but I'm just saying, because they don't know the full story, it might lead to misunderstandings, or it might just lead to confusion here and there. So things can get messy in that sense. But, they went down, the police, 911, family went down, Box Elder County went down. I think they said there was about, 6, 7 police guys or something, police women, policemen, I don't know, detectives down there, whatever. There was action taken, went down. And obviously I said, insert, that's when the key fob was returned back to property when no one was there. So, a bit dodgy that, okay? Now, it turned out to be a false call, obviously. But the main point is that, once again, a crime, or a supposed crime, or a lead within the overall missing person case was treated with little importance by the same people, once again, law enforcement, Box Elder County. So, it's not looking good, is it? Let's be realistic. So, with that in mind, I guess the hope fades away. But it's one of those things where if they're the authority and they're really the only ones there at the time who can step in and help, and you don't feel that there is anybody else that can help, then it's like you're hopeless, but you still have to hold on to these people, this department, even though they're not doing a good job, because what else can you believe in at the time? And like how Justin Round's dad said, was, you just had to hope and believe that behind all of that mess, that they did find things and they were working secretly in solving the case. That's the only hope they could have at the time. So as I briefly talked about the key fob, the situation of that, as I said, look at the previous video to fully understand the outcome of that and the theory and the suspect tied with it and who's responsible, okay? But tying it in very briefly, the key fob, the information of that, the result was entered in on the Name Us website, the Public Missing Person Report website, which you can go on and check out missing people, etc. Dylan's on there and the information is as well. But it was a mistake by Box Elder County in which they entered those details on, important information which shouldn't have been shared with the general public. So, not exactly professional. It might have been a mistake, but with how they've acted previously and what we know of up to now, it's not a surprise, and it just digs them into a deeper grave in terms of credibility, respect, and all of that. Now, to explain a little bit about NAM-US and how information is entered on the database, there are two ways, okay? I know some viewers might have been a bit confused in the past, but this might explain it. So from what Candy said in the interview, there's two ways of logging in, okay? So by default, you can just look at the pages publicly. I guess if you've got the name and their last name, you type it in, you'll find the person, you'll find information, so much of it. In terms of adding someone onto the website, it can be done by like the parents, family, or by the police, okay? If it's done like a public login, such as a parent, a family member, a friend, someone who has experienced an individual going missing, you can set up an account, you can log in, and then you can basically fill out the profile of the missing person who you know of, and providing it's approved by the police, maybe of the state, the county, area, if it's approved, it can be then like posted and then in public viewing with the information presented by that public login, preferably of an individual who's a friend, family member, some kind of associate who knows of a missing person, which was approved by the police. So there's that way. As for maybe more sensitive information, stuff that can't be shared with the general public, that's the police login. The police can set up their own, missing person profile report, add in as much or as little information as they need to on that page. Only police can view that. It's private, but it can be shared, the info, between different police departments or police within the area. So what could have happened is the police must have done a public login and then shared that private information on the public page when they should have signed in on the police login and then entered the information in that way, so it was private and only other police could see. So I guess that explains that. Now, we don't stop there because this is another key point with the key fob, okay? So, as Candice said, day 3, Wednesday, Box Elder didn't see it as suspicious in terms of the key fob. Now, I assume they're referring to it being returned back. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it can't be to do with them adding it in on the database because they're the ones responsible, so there would be nothing to do with that. Would it be anything to do with the fact that the key fob was missing in the first place and they didn't find that as suspicious? Maybe. There's a possibility to that as well, but they didn't think, oh, it doesn't really matter. But I think this is more to do. And correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes the odd mistake will be made, but I think from what Candice said was that Box Elder didn't really respond to the fact that the key fob was returned back to the trailer. That's a big thing, isn't it? It's like, where has it been? Who returned it? And was it the suspect? Was the key fob on Dylan? Is there evidence on it? Could it reveal something? And yet, they were like, oh well, it's not that important. It's not good, is it? But once again, just another example of playing things down, minimizing. It makes you think. When it was worded as an unknown person returned to the trailer to return it, could the police know? But they're hiding the person's name for now for legal reasons, or is it for their own reasons because it's yet somebody else they know and are working with, another criminal, another dodgy person. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, very dodgy. Anything else in between? I think there might have been a few points here and there. Is there anything else? Well, I'll just go backwards a bit because I forgot to mention it. You know Dylan Round's father, Justin Rounds. You know, he seems a bit reserved, calm, holding back, but I think from what was said in the interview, more to do with when the police weren't, well, Box Elder County weren't, you know, going to Montello in the first place to, you know, for that report of Dylan being held hostage. Dylan's father did say in the interview that, you know, if they're not going to do anything, I'm going to tell them that I'm going to go myself and take action, take things in my own hands. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're not advised to do that because it can ruin the investigation, it can compromise stuff, but it can also put you in danger. Let the police deal with it. But in a situation like this, when they're not willing to help, sometimes you've got to take things into your own hands. And I guess that kind of, on a side note, was a catalyst and prompted Box Elder County to step in and thinking, fine, we don't want any more trouble, we don't want anyone else getting hurt and stuff, so we'll come in. I just wanted to add that point in because I felt like I forgot that before. So I think it's one of those things where if you wanted to do a little bit of body language, is he's calm, Justin Rounds, kind of relaxed, you know, all kinds of thoughts going on inside, but he's not showing them because he doesn't want to or it's not needed. But, you know, one-on-one, you know, put the police aside, he will do whatever it takes to find Dylan or to get some kind of justice. That's the way I see it, and there's not much wrong with that. I mean, if police aren't doing their job or doing it properly, then other people should be allowed to step in, even if it is a bit rogue. So what? You know what I'm saying? So what do we move on to next? Tinnitus all of a sudden. I mean, it's all the sounds around. Fuck me. Anything else? Box Elder. Okay. So a bit later on, I can't remember exactly when, but Candy said, with Box Elder, they received information, but not together. Let me show you this clip to make more sense of it.
We're starting to get a little bit of information from the detectives, but they separate us. So they would tell him something and then they'd pull me aside and say, okay, now I'm going to tell you. They would not do it together, which we could not figure out because then we were so frantic and exhausted and emotionally exhausted. Then we would get talking and we would think we were confusing stuff because they wouldn't talk to us together.
Do you think they thought you were suspects?
It's a possibility, I'm sure.
So as you heard, when it came to that sort of information at times, they were separated. And even the parents don't even know why. Now, I can give you my thoughts and opinions to why that might be the case. Whether it's to be because Box Elder County see the parents as responsible in some way for Dylan's outcome, and they want to see how the parents react separately. Maybe they want to determine and split down the middle which individual is the one responsible for Dylan's disappearance. You know, if Box Elder County believe, whether it be the mother or the father, one of them is controlling, one of them is manipulative, dodgy, got a dark side to them. Maybe when they are together, certain things don't show, certain emotions, body language is suppressed by the presence of the other person to keep the other person in line. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how could I word this? Okay. Some people might not like what I'm about to say, okay? But basically, when it comes to like scenes when you might see it in a film or a TV show, which is based on real life events, where you might get someone in some kind of negative relationship with somebody else, they're being controlled, manipulated, physically, mentally, that sort of stuff, you know what I'm saying? If that couple are in the same room being interviewed by police or medical staff, the victim is likely to not show their true emotion, their true body language, how they truly feel, because they're under the control and in the presence of the bad person. But if you separate them and interview them individually, ask them questions, or just simply tell them information, and then you can see how they react. When that form of control, when that chain is broken, then that can lead to a different response, different emotions being shown, them speaking their mind, good or bad, and then you might, find out what's what. So in a situation like this, with Dylan Round's parents, maybe the police are thinking, how should I word this? Sometimes it can be influenced heavily, biased by gender, but they could be thinking that maybe Dylan's father is a bit controlling, when maybe he's not, but maybe the police are thinking that, and I think Candice won't internalize certain information or believe in it or resist it if in the presence of the father. So by telling her separately, they can tell her that way, and then they can tell the father the other way, and then see how they respond separately, because they might respond differently when together. That's just one rough way of looking at it, okay? It could also be a test. Let's say the police don't know who is suspicious, but they would like to know who reacts best, who listens best, or who stands out the most when told certain information, so that's why they tell them that way. There's many different ways around it. Obviously, you can leave your thoughts down below and so on, but it's kind of interesting. But from what Candice said about how it caused, stress, confusion, panic, questioning, just the simple fact they were being separated. Certain thoughts being on mind, thinking, wait, are they separating us because they think we're responsible, as was said in the interview? Now that's, juxtaposition, or kind of like a microcosm of what a lot of viewers are thinking, whether it be all at once or over time, not just on this platform, but maybe overall, and maybe just people who don't even go online or so. There's a certain amount of people, fucking hair, piss off. There's a certain amount of people that think that Dylan Round's mother, Candice Cooley, is the dodgy one, is the suspect, is responsible for Dylan's disappearance, or, cooperating with another bad individual, and they're both involved in some way or another. That's what people are thinking. And now for the parents to say themselves that, are the police thinking we're dodgy? You know what I'm saying? It's just like kind of interesting now, just the way it's been worded, despite all the other backroom talk about, they're suspicious, yeah, they're responsible. Now even the parents are bringing it up themselves, obviously not incriminating themselves, but just raising the question, asking themselves that. So yeah, it does make sense, okay? I get the idea of it. I don't know if you do, but like with the example of being interviewed separately, that can lead to doubt within one's self. You might think, can they not trust us when we're together? What do they know, what we don't? They doubt themselves. Are we not good enough? Am I not good enough to hear the truth in this situation, in this preferable environment? Why is it being done differently? Am I being treated differently? Are they telling me different information to what they're telling Justin? Are they being more lenient towards me because of my gender over him? So it's like a lot of different questioning and thoughts that would be going on in a person's mind, and maybe introspection being demonstrated at the same point. So with that doubt, with that questioning, it can lead to confusion and inner confusion when there doesn't need to be. So I don't know if that's what caused misinformation when interviews were done with, the odd private investigator or YouTuber or other sources and stuff. Maybe that's what caused the confusion, mainly because of Box Elder County and the way they told them information and treated them, beside everything else. So, a bit interesting. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it within the same space. Yeah, I probably did, because I'm going along as I edit this video, okay? But aside from that information, so we're talking about the boots. You know, the boots from the beginning. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I interpret the language used is the detective that took Candice out, that told her, boots have been taken for testing. It's confirmed it's Dylan's blood. And Candice said he lied. So I assume what the mean is, back then, way back at the start, they weren't taken for testing. They weren't taken to the lab. And then fast forward just a little bit and went in the car, and that detective is now saying they have been taken. They are now in the lab and they have been confirmed that there is blood and it's tied with Dylan. I assume when Candice said he was lying was they were still lying and they still have not been taken to the lab, which means 2 lots of delays. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's like, why are they lying? Based off my interpretation, okay, let me make that clear. Based off my interpretation, why would they be lying, saying that it has been taken and it is Dylan's blood? What are Box Elder County benefiting from that by lying? Is it like, is it because they might know something but they don't want to reveal it because it might be caught up with a suspect that the police are working with and, or, you know, looking out for and trying to protect? Some dodginess going on. Is someone being paid off? Is a criminal paying someone off? I don't know. Because, you know, that lying can give people false hope. And that's, as a microcosm, explains the roller coaster situation, even from the general public, the way it's been up and down within the family members being told this has been found or this has been taken, progress has been made here, and then you find out, oh, none of that's true. Big trust issues, hope destroyed, broken in a way. So that doesn't do the people any good, and it's like, are Box Elder County playing mind games? Are they enjoying this? Are they doing some kind of psychological warfare? Or are they lying? Let's just look at from a different approach, okay? So aside from the whole negative, extreme manipulation, could it be because Box Elder County, alt theory, is it because they're embarrassed? Embarrassed the way things have gone, the way they've proceeded with stuff? Could that be it? Covering up their mistakes, trying to smoothen out things in hopes that other people don't catch on and find out that they're lying, to keep the parents quiet, to shut them up, that sort of thing. Because if the parents are frustrated and angry and react badly, which Candice said she did because she lost it with that detective and that detective pulled out or left, whatever, it's to be expected, makes sense, understandable. But, you know, does Box Elder County not want people to give them a bad review or to report them, to speak out? Could Box Elder County might have paid off the family or tried to at some point? I don't know. It wasn't mentioned in the interview, but maybe they could have done, or at some point they might. I don't know. I mean, they're already dodgy, so what else are they capable of? They're already lying, so what else? That sort of stuff. And it kind of ties in, okay? So not only lying, maybe manipulation, or maybe because they're embarrassed by their own mistakes. But like how what was said in that Fox 13 news, I think it was, about, what was it now? But when they tried reaching out, the news reporters, the journalist, whoever, tried reaching out to the spokesperson of Box Elder County or just the police themselves, phone up the sheriff, whoever, there was no reply, no response. They've gone quiet completely. That's probably because they're being exposed and they're trying to keep a low profile now. And by speaking out publicly, they're fighting a losing battle. They can't win because of all the mess they've done. And now with this interview being aired, explaining everything that's gone on, it's not putting them in a good position. It's it doesn't give them a good overall picture. But, it should be revealed publicly. If they've messed up, if they've caused problems, that itself, aside from Dylan Rounds, should be mentioned publicly as well. And that's basically what's happened. So, yeah, you can leave your thoughts down below. What do you think of Box Elder County? Why do you think they lied about the boots being taken to the lab? Do you think it was for manipulative reasons, covering for somebody? Or is it because they are just incompetent and they are trying to smoothen out the mistakes and not look as bad as they really are, because they don't want a bad report, bad credit, because then they won't be hired? Well, no, you can't say hired because they are the law. But you know what I'm saying. Maybe there might be changes, shake-ups, people fired, other people stepping in, I don't know. And they don't want that. They want to keep the jobs and do that even if they aren't that great. So leave your thoughts down below, okay? What's anything else within the interview? Well, said about boots, 6th of June. Yeah, mentioned that. Okay. Yeah, no doubt. Okay. So one thing that was done, or has been done, was Candice wrote a letter. Some formal letter, I guess, highlighting all the mistakes, all the problems and issues. And that was handed over to the state of Utah. It makes sense, reaching out to a higher authority overall within the state. If Box Elder County aren't going to step down themselves because they're being awkward, then the state of Utah, higher power, there might be more chance of them saying, you know what, Box Elder, you're fired. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying, step down. And as well, maybe the state of Utah might be more understanding, the people in charge there. They might listen. They might not be as corrupt as this local police department. So it makes sense to write a letter. It's formal. It mentions all the grievances. Is that a correct word? Grievances, or is that meant to do with sadness and death? I can't remember. But basically, all the, what was it, decree? Could it be decree? I don't know. But basically, all the issues, everything that's led up to now, most of what I said in this video, those points are probably mentioned. Candice said she didn't have enough space. She could have gone on all night or something, writing up all those, issues by Box Elder County. So, it gives her a bit of space, gives her, I don't know, a bit of a fight to try and get rid of this incompetence by reaching out to the state of Utah. Do you think, chat, that this should have been done sooner, earlier on? Then again, if you've got hope, you're holding on, you're not going to think like this until it's too late, until it's got to that breaking point. So I guess that would rule out that. But yeah, and it might be one of those things where you might not be able to report it immediately because you don't have enough evidence, or you don't have enough bullet points, enough points to raise concern that the current department isn't doing their job properly. You need to wait, you need to gather more evidence. And I guess that's what's happened in recent time. Well, not exactly recent, but you know what I'm saying. Within the case, the timeline of it. So, anything else? Okay. Apologies about this. Okay. Just a random point along the way. It was said that the parents were allowed to take the grain truck back home with them despite it not being processed. I guess the vehicle was taken in at first for some kind of DNA testing, forensics, but the evidence, the findings weren't processed, submitted, I guess, validated, something like that. So basically just said, Candice, Justin, you can take the vehicle back home now. It's not exactly professional. That's the main thing. It's not professional, is it? You shouldn't do that. They need to wait until the evidence has been entered in, checked out, validated, reinforced. If there have been certain findings, certain evidence and forensics with that grain truck, whether it be the need to return back for further investigation, or they might have made an error, so they need to go back and recheck. How can they? As with the parents taking that truck back home with them or to Dylan's property, driving it, touching the handles, the doors, the steering wheel, clutch, gear, everything and anything, whatever it may be, just simply sitting in that seat, you know? And they're like, the LE or the forensics are like, right, okay, we need to check back. Okay, can you bring this vehicle back in so we can double check things? Well, the family have already contaminated potential evidence. Things have been disturbed, so maybe that thing the forensic team wanted to look back on isn't there now because it's gone, or it's been tampered, it's been messed with, it's been disrupted. But the parents weren't to know because they were told by the LE, by the authorities, that it's okay to take back. When in most cases in life, you probably wouldn't be allowed to have it back until after. So once again, unprofessional, can compromise the case. I mean, let's just not forget to maintain balance. Let's not forget originally the mother and maybe somebody else was responsible for investigating Dylan's farm, the grain shed, and his Ford F-150 Raptor originally, touching it, getting into the vehicle, breaking in. So they've already done it themselves. Okay, so let's not forget that. Okay. Is there anything else I've not mentioned yet? Yeah, so I guess this was after June 6th, I assume, because the way the interview was ordered and the way she was talking events through. Okay. Candice mentioned that she reached out to, I think it was Box Elder County, about saying, at this point now, it was either Box Elder County or it was that other police department. I can't remember what they're called. Did it begin with a T or an L? Can't remember, but never mind. Reached out and said, is it time now? Is it appropriate? Can we get the general public to come in and search? And that was said back then. So hopefully people don't get that confused as her saying, right now, we need help, we need public support. Okay? If I'm trying to date back, or, myself, my opinion, this statement by Candice seems to tie in with, towards the start, actually. Towards the start with the boot situation, the way things been delayed, the way the mother was criticising the police and then said, hey, general public, can you reach out? It was that period, that time frame. So it probably is just after the 6th or nearby. Quite a lot seems to have happened in a short space of time. A lot of bad stuff, I guess. Yeah, it must have been then because she got the general public to reach in at that point after shortly criticising the police. And then, as a bit of time passed, I don't know if it was the 28th of June, might be a bit before that, when in the East Idaho News Channel, I think it was briefly talked about, but before that it was mentioned in either ABC4 News or the ABC4 Utah News or Fox 13 Utah News. I don't know, it's like based on state, but yeah, where then this announced that the mother doesn't want general public to come in anymore because police have started finding stuff and are investigating and they don't want evidence to be tampered with. And then that followed with the East Idaho News Channel doing, I think, either the second or the third latest interview at the time, where Candice said it'll be the third one, not the fourth one, the third one, before this one, okay? Where she said, there is evidence, there is stuff being found, we can't talk about it at this moment in time, but things are happening. So if Candice has now just come out and has criticised the police, the way they've gone about things, a lot of what has been said was basically around the 1st of June to the 6th, up to maybe the 20th, let's just say. What happened after that? I mean, what's it now? It's August. There's been time. So what's happened from all that incompetence to now? You had the whole situation with Jim Brenner's trailer, the warrant, how things were dragged out. I don't know if I've got a note somewhere that mentions it. I wonder if it's on the back of a bit of paper. It might be. It might be. Let me just make sure I've not missed anything out. Okay. So I'll resume back to this timeline of the criticisms and when things happened and then when things died down and went quiet up until just recently when she did mention it as a whole. Let me return back to that in a second, okay? I just want to tie in together about back then when she then reached out for general public to search and look in the area. You know, the YouTubers, hikers, whoever, Lance, Ty, those type of people, and other ones as well. And that was back then. And it was somewhat successful from what Candice said. But there was a problem, and I think this clip will explain, okay?
You know, Weber County came out that Friday, which was great. They did an amazing search and rescue team. And then it was that next day, I asked one of the Box Elder sheriffs, I said, when do we call for a public search? When do we got all these people we're holding back that want to come help find Dylan? And he said, now would be a good time. So then that Saturday, we held the search. We probably had 300 people. No help. No deputy assigned to us. The only deputy that was out there told me our son's case would resume on a Zoom meeting at 11 o'clock Monday, and I lost it on him. And so he ended up leaving.
Okay, so just a very quick correction. Okay, so earlier when I said when Candice was taken out on that drive to be interviewed by that detective and she lost it and got rid of him. No, she might have got angry, but she didn't get rid of him. He didn't walk away in that sense. It was meant in this clip where she had enough of this detective who, you know, was saying, oh, I'll just resume on a Zoom meeting. So that's what she was referring to where she said he left the Zoom meeting, I assume, or didn't bother doing it because it was a joke, a mockery, you know, not even in person. And that makes sense because it ties in with when Candy said previously that it was only up to, was it June 18th maybe, or a bit later, when they actually had like a proper talk with Box Elder County, because all before that, up until then, there was a lack of that communication. So, okay, that makes sense, right? Now, as said in that little clip just then about how there were people out there, a search was done, I guess with the family, parents, going around, doing what they could, looking at, you know, areas, ticking stuff off. You know, there's only so much they can do, and there's only so much coordination that can take place. Sometimes it's good to have experts in to maintain order, control, such as authorities. And if they're not there, then it's like a wild goose chase. Who's looking after who? Who's monitoring what area has been checked? Are people going over a location that has already been searched? Has anyone gone missing? Because that's the other thing you've got to take in mind. Like what I said, no regard for health and safety. You know, you might have search and rescue professionals, authority out there at a point in time that know what to do, know the area, or just like know about health and safety and not get hurt. But if you've got an inexperienced general public volunteer who's doing it out the goodness of their own heart, but they're not used to that environment, or they don't normally do that sort of stuff, walking on that terrain, being in that environment, weather, heat, whatever it may be, and there is no coordination, there is no guidance, nothing set up, maybe food, water, drinks and all that, it's every man for themselves, no proper support, no proper backing, no proper resources, they could get stranded. They could go off and wander off, who knows, and get lost. I don't think anyone did, but that would be yet another knock-on effect, and Ellie are responsible for that if someone did get hurt, if someone did go missing, if someone tripped over, injured themselves. I don't know, any of that could happen. And that kind of ties back to that fairy idea of if Jim Brenner wasn't arrested immediately and he hurt someone in between whilst he's free, then, you know, problems that would be on the LE. It would be the Box Elder County to blame for that. So just these like situational events that could have occurred alongside with all the other bad stuff, okay? So not great. in terms of the way the search has gone, has it? You know, things could have been done better, things have been fixed. Is there anything else to look at? Yes, before I forget. Linking back to interviews, okay? We've seen them, like, you know, Candy's been interviewed on YouTube call-ins and panels, Zav Girl, maybe somebody else, in person or over Zoom maybe, meetings with Jim Terry, back then private investigator, Heavy D, in-person interview, talk, East Idaho News Channel being interviewed there, the Fox 13 News Utah one, kind of interviewed that way. But what about a proper, formal, maybe public interview, almost like a press conference, that sort of stuff? You know, quite a few have been saying it, where is that kind of thing? Why are other missing people cases receiving that? Why are other people who've got missing people, the parents, doing that sort of stuff? And why aren't the Rounds parents, the Rounds family doing that? Are they hiding something? Are they reducing certain action because they're involved in it in some way? You know, that sort of stuff. Well, I don't know if I shared the clip with you before, but I'll play it again anyway. This is what Candy's had to say about that stuff with interviews.
Justin and I have never been interviewed.
This was just to pull you aside.
This
to
is
talk.
just to pull
This
you
wasn't
aside.
a formal interview.
No, we've never been
wasn't
given
that.
a formal interview. No, Dawn wasn't who's on the property. Brenner wasn't. None of the neighbors. None of our nobody. Nobody was formally interviewed.
And you would be open to doing a formal interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was open for anything.
So from the looks of it, they've basically been denied that opportunity, that chance to reach out publicly and I guess openly, or even just behind closed doors, but formally with the right people to then maybe then be aired publicly. Do you know what I'm saying? Where you see those more formal situations on the news, a proper full-length interview, whether it be open or closed questions, to really get the story out, spread it, put it in the media for the right reasons, and just do what any other missing case official one would do and how the family would. But because they were denied of that, and still now, you know, what can they do? And from their response, they seem, you know, they want to, they're open to doing that. So it doesn't look like they've got anything to hide if they are wanting to reach out and get involved in those type of interviews. So that's kind of good, I guess. But is it one of those things, once again, where let's say it does open up the opportunity now, okay, that there is progress, just like with, let's say, you know, Box Elder County are dropped, FBI step in with full force, or the state police steps in. It sounds like a victory, along with the potential of eventually getting a proper interview or a proper press conference. That can be a victory in itself. But are both of those things done too late, to the point where Dylan now is deceased? I mean, what you've always got to take in mind, he could be alive in some way, somehow, but also an in-between point to ease pain and suffering, or the what if we did it sooner, earlier type scenario would be if Dylan was already gone back then when he disappeared. So like on the spot, he was killed, taken out by Jim or somebody else back then. So it wasn't like he was held captive and died slowly, because if that was the case, then that would be the worst outcome, and then it would make the parents and maybe others feel even worse, knowing that he could have been saved, but because of the police, because of not being able to do a proper interview, that's what held them back from getting their son back. So obviously very messy, and depends how you look at it. I think I've mentioned most of it, to be fair. Was there anything else? Yeah, just, you know, final little point, I guess can bring it in. So to tie it all together, most of what we've heard is from the beginning. Apologies about that background sound. Shut up, you bastard! Anyway, apologies. So, to tie it together, most of what's happened has occurred from the beginning up to, what would you say, June the 20th? I mean, what happened in July? I mean, maybe a few of those points mentioned in this video are to do with July, but they didn't give the month July. They only kept referring to June, June the 6th, June this, June the 18th. They didn't mention much about July. So what happened in July then? I mean, we fast forward, we skip a month, August. Well, Elcam, Box Elder, working on that warrant to investigate Jim Brenner's trailer in Montello. And that was done, in August. So that's like the latest thing, the latest bit of incompetence that's occurred. Before I get into that and explain a bit more, the only question I have is, we've seen June, we've seen a bit of August. What happened in July? What did the police do wrong in July? Was it some of the points mentioned in this video earlier on, which I didn't see the date of? Or is it external stuff? Because it just seems a little bit quiet, July. What happened in July? Do you know? Did the police do anything else? Make any progress? Make any more slip-ups, mishaps? Let me know your thoughts, okay? Now, to get back onto the latest and the last event and bit of incompetence, which then led to, I guess, the breaking point, the response of Candice and Justin reaching out, doing that interview with the Fox 13 News, saying there needs to be change in who handles the case, and then East Idaho News Channel, the proper full-on interview with that sort of stuff. So I guess that's the catalyst. But yeah, in terms of that warrant on Jim Brenner's property in Montello, it was dragged out a bit. From the way it was worded in the interview, Candy said Box Elder County attempted to get a warrant, but they failed and kind of gave up. Elko got involved, I guess another police department. Elko was successful. Elko were fast in response in getting the warrant and going there. I don't know if Box Elder County assisted and came in along the way, but yeah, Candice praised Elko but criticised Box Elder for how they went about it. So although, they didn't find anything, it was just like the latest event, the latest investigation. That's just wanted to point out, okay? So the final part of the interview, this most recent one by the East Idaho News Channel, is the reporter said, okay, a few little questions, can you answer them, clear them up? It was to do with the grain shed, the truck itself, was it searched? As I said earlier on, yes, he wasn't there. In terms of Dylan in the pond or wash, as I said, it was cleared up earlier in this video. Yeah, search and rescue did go to the pond in Lucin. Dylan's trailer, looked around, looked into the pond, divers or just normal people. Nothing was found there. So that's cleared up. That's all good, the way they've structured this interview. This channel does well at doing it, and the reporter as well. Now, there was two final points, two questions which were important to do with Chase Venstra and Jim Brenner. I'm going to share with you a clip of Candice's response and the latest information and updates around those two.
Chase Venstra has never been called a suspect. He has not been named a suspect by law enforcement. We truly know nothing. I have asked, I can't tell you how many times, have you cleared him? Is he, which is it? I don't know. They won't tell me anything. Brenner, he is the official suspect. There is some more stuff we know about him that we can't release that's made him that suspect. But once again, it's all the stuff we had in the beginning.
Yeah.
It all started right there where Dylan parked his truck and Brenner was squatting everything we had in the first 3 days.
So some very important points and analysis we need to get to now, okay? Hopefully people are still around to listen to this part of the video. You know, I could have shown it earlier on because it's more important at this point, but you know, it needs to be done in the correct order of how the interview went, as well as the timeline, because if it's out of sync, then everyone's going to be confused. So, you heard what Candy said, and we'll start off with Chase Venstra. He's still in jail, but that's because of unrelated charges. It's gun charges, felon, owning firearms. You're not supposed to. You get in trouble, hence why he's in jail. But the way Candice said it was he wasn't a part of the case. He wasn't a suspect from the beginning. But the way we saw it, the things we heard, he was. Whether it be him being classified as one or just the way he was treated. But then again, let's just understand the way Box Elder County have handled things with the switching and changing of stuff, the lack of transparency, accuracy and communication. It's no surprise to why we thought he was a suspect and why certain news articles worded it that way too. So there you go. But in terms of what Candice said, and this is a critical point, okay? She said, I don't really know anything, to be honest, about Chase. Don't really know any information whatsoever. But I'm sure in previous interviews, the way she was wording it, she was saying, nope, Chase can't be the suspect. Nope, he's not. He's not. Nope. But Jim is. And it's like, okay, you might know Jim more than Chase, but you don't know what Chase Venstra is capable of. He's already got a past criminal history, just like with Jim Brenner. There are similarities between the two. Violence, acting out, dangerous, aggressive, digging up stuff, burying things, stealing, guns, owning them. You know, see what I'm saying? So how can she be so sure at a point in time to say, nah, Chase, nah, he's okay, he's not part of it, but Jim is. And then just now, she says in this interview, I don't know anything. I don't know if he is innocent or not. They've not told me anything. If they've not told you anything, then that means previously when you did respond and act, that you were just doing it off assumptions. Like, very dodgy, that bit. You know what I'm saying? Leave your thoughts. That part is a bit weird. Now, with Jim Brenner, said he's seen as the main suspect. He's in jail too. And that's, well, because he's been treated as the main suspect, but it's more to do with the gun charges. Okay, I assume. I did hear that Candice earlier in the interview said that he was arrested and then was released and then was arrested again. So I don't know what that was all about. I don't know if that was because he was released because of the gun charges and then arrested and treated as a suspect. Or I don't know. But anyway, this part though where she says, and with Jim, there is new information, new findings, which we can't reveal at this moment in time. Exact wording as what she said in the last East Idaho News Channel interview when it came to the investigation on the farm of Dylan's, when she said, the police are looking into it. They have found stuff which we can't release at this moment in time. Let's just go backwards. What was that information she couldn't share with us back then, but she could now, supposedly? What was that? Was that to do with the key fob all along? That they found the key fob and that they couldn't share it at the time, but they had to keep quiet. But indirectly, they still released it anyway, publicly, by mistake. Is that part of evidence that, you know, was revealed eventually? Or is there still that evidence back then that was mentioned, which still hasn't been revealed yet because it's a part of the case overall? And now they found yet even more stuff, even more information. Can anyone correct me or mention what that evidence could be? Do you know what it could be? Who it could tie to? An object? Clothing? DNA fingerprints? What do you think? Leave your thoughts. And I think the most interesting part, and I'm going to replay this clip to you once again because we need to finish this off with body language analysis, okay? This is how Candice appeared, her facial expressions. I'm going to zoom in as well so you see her facial expressions, her voice, her pace and everything when, you know, referring to Jim Brenner.
Once again, it's all the stuff we had in the beginning.
Yeah.
It all started right there where Dylan parked his truck and Brenner was squatting everything we had in the first 3 days.
Did you notice that, the way she smirked? Now, I don't know if that's like some kind of dodginess, which people could, you know, interpret. The way I interpret is, and I was right all along from the beginning. You know, that type of thing. Like, she was like, I knew it was that. I knew it was him, and yet everyone else, or all the authorities, dismissed it, dragged it out, went here, went there, did this, did that, but all along it was right here under everyone's noses. That's the way it is. And you see her body language, her tone of voice changes. It's less genuine, her voice. It's more like, I told you so, that sort of tone. But it wasn't just that, it was her body language, her pacing, letting it sink in. You know, she said what she said, pause, let it sink in, and then say it was all the information we knew of in the 3 days of investigating, and it could have been solved then, but it wasn't. And you see her body language as well when she was saying all that, the way she leaned in like that. Kind of like an exaggerative form of dropping a hint, an exaggerative whisper when you go up to someone and say, hey, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a secret. Like that, but said out more vocally and louder to exaggerate. Almost like a symbolism of the exaggeration of how the police have dealt with things and the incompetence of them. So it's like interpreting it, the language and everything, all together. She knew from the start Jim was responsible. The way she said it all happened at the grain shed. But, yeah, where the truck was parked, she's referring to the grain truck parked in the grain shed, which Jim is squatting nearby in that trailer, and the boots are found near that mound over that way. So basically, what she said kind of ties in with my original theory, where I kept saying the grain shed, that area, a hot spot, it all went down in that spot. Confrontation, Dylan getting hurt, maybe killed, and then whatever happens, happens after that. The way she worded it was as if, yes, that's where it occurred, but that's where it also ended, him being buried, from the looks of it, because no one has found him yet, so he must be buried underground, buried under something, right? So anyway, if Candice does believe and does know, for some reason, that it happened there, and Dylan is on that land, literally right there, then, you know, he has to be buried, because the grain shed, empty, no one in there. The trailer, no one in there. People say the mounds where the boots were found should have been dug up, but has it? Or has it not? I don't know. It doesn't look disturbed. And then you've got the other mounds as well near the grain shed over that way in Pancakes video, Salty Pancakes, and it's like, was that disturbed? And from the overall looks of it, the area doesn't look like much has been changed. Like, have things been dug up, unearthed, and then moved to the side in another mound? Was it covered back up? Or was it just not touched? I don't know, I can't tell myself. And if it hasn't, then it's like, well, someone ought to check it out, right? So anyway, but I'm just trying to think, could body language, her voice and everything, this is just an observation, okay? Final thoughts on this whole entire case, okay, up to now. and you can leave your opinions down below. Is there a reason to why Candice has been somewhat calm and emotionless all the way through, from the looks of it, start to beginning? Is it because she knew the outcome of Dylan and who's responsible, based off what we've just seen in this interview clip? The way she said, it all started here and ended. We knew all this information in the 3 days of investigation and we know who it is, Jim, case closed. And yet it's still ongoing now. So does she deal with everything, internalize everything, go through all the different emotions early on because she already knew? And then over time, as things dragged on and people kept missing the obvious, let's just say, she's like, wow, I know it all. I know what's happened, and yet people aren't bothering, or people aren't doing it. Wow, this is crazy. Wow, wow. And then eventually breaking and getting a bit frustrated. Could that be the case? I mean, the odd anomaly, is that how you say it? Anomaly that stood out in terms of her was in the third East Idaho News Channel interview, when she was saying, I hope he returns back home on his birthday. That could be grief, that could be denial. There might be an odd slip up. Most of the time she's been kind of emotionless in a way, externally, some of the things that she said, but in that one spell, that brief second, she seemed and appeared hopeful that he was still alive. And yet, this interview, she's saying, we know exactly what happened. It's all there from the beginning. So she already knew back then why does she suddenly start thinking, oh, I hope Dylan returns back home at a later point? I said that might just be the grief or the denial coming in, which takes over, which she can't control. That's the way I see it at the end of the day, okay? So, a lot talked about, supposedly, a lot of corruption, incompetence by the police end, misinformation, confusion, the next step to try and get a different department, other officials in, and then maybe solving it. If Candice is so confident that it's on the grain shed land, then really that's where everyone needs to go, right? But yeah, if there is any inaccuracies or mistakes or any issues, feel free to leave a comment down below, okay? This is quite a long video. I've not really done a video like this before in terms of analysing an already longer video, if that makes sense. I mean, some of the news ones I've looked at previously, like the body language ones, were like about 3 minutes long, the odd one being 15 minutes long. This one was like 24 minutes in terms of the original interview, and then all the points mentioned, because sometimes you can get shorter videos with lots of stuff mentioned within it. Other times you can get 6-hour-long videos where there isn't as much discussed, or the same thing is being talked about over and over again. And I did experiment, okay? I'll just share this thought with me, not with me, with you, like an afterthought. Let's just call this a debrief session, okay? No, Dr. Andrew is not here yet. Your appointment is not ready. Please be patient. Sit down again. Shh. No, but in terms of a debrief, from past experience, although I might not actively engage in other people's videos or hardly at all, that's mainly because I'm making my own videos. There's not enough time to look at this and that. There's only so much you can do, okay, along with other stuff side by side. So you've got to take that in mind. But the thing is, I have seen the odd video, which has been like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours maybe long. I didn't watch all the way through it, but I think maybe on the odd video, I did a 4-hour one. And I had it in the background, just audio only, because I was playing a game, okay? I was playing Raid Shadow Legends, and then some YouTube stuff as well, editing. And whilst it was playing in the background, for that length of time, how much of it was really useful out of those 4 hours? Like when you see all these other YouTubers do the really long clips, how much was talked about? Well, to be honest, a pattern I've noticed, I'm just trying to think, whose is it? is it the Mob Crew? It could be the Mob Crew, it could be Zav Girl, it could be Pancakes, kind of, and it could be Lance as well, where some of their live videos, proper live videos, there's about a 15-minute interval at the very start, like a countdown, but it was a part of the video. You know what I'm saying? When I do my live video premieres, that's different. And the only countdown is when the video actually goes live, and it's like a 2-minute countdown, as you've seen, that cringy music being played. And when the likes of Fraser holds his breath for as long as possible until the countdown drops. So I guess it's probably a good thing it's that way, because if Fraser had to hold his breath for 15 minutes in Tyler's video or Zavgil's, he'd be fucked. So yeah, but you see what I'm saying, how with the countdown being incorporated in an actual live video, such as maybe Zavgirl, or I don't know if No Thanks has done that, Mob Crew, those type of people, like a 15 minutes with music playing in the background. It's good, yeah, in a way, because what it does, it allows people to come in, join and wait. So no one's rushing around. There's like a waiting period, so people can come in and, you know, catch up without missing out and talk in between whilst they're waiting. That's all positive. But because it's added to the length of the overall video, when you watch it back afterwards and you see, fucking hell, 4-hour video, well, 15 minutes of that video is time wastage. 10 minutes maybe at the end is time wastage. In between, there's little breaks, or there's people disconnecting because of Wi-Fi, audio problems, waiting for the next guest to appear. There's a lot of fill-ins and blank spots. If you took all that out, that 4-hour, 3-hour video could come down to a 1-hour, 50-minute video. That might be a bit extensive, but you see what I'm saying? Whereas when I'm doing my clips, they're not pure live. Let's be realistic. So there's no umming, ahhing, let's move on. Oh, technical issue. Oh, I've just been distracted. Oh, the cat's pounced on me. I've not even got a cat, but let's just say that happened. Oh, the gorillas have infiltrated and banging on the door. Oh, I best go down and give them some tea or coffee because they want a tea party. None of that happens, obviously, because it's not pure live. But then again, when you think about it, this video, for most part of it, aside from the odd jump cut where I might have spazzed out or needed to get a drink of water, which you don't see, for most part of it, I've been talking on the spot, bang, 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 like that. So I think I've incorporated both kind of like the live element in a sense, but also reducing that time wastage and those blank spots. So it's just point after point, information after information. You see what I'm saying? But the perspective, the angle, and the concept of what all the other people do, No Thanks, Zavgirl, Mob Crew, Tyler, their format and structure is still good because it provides a more interactive approach, I guess, with the call-ins and all that. That's what they do. I do my thing, they do their thing, and together it kind of gives the option for people to pick one or the other, or both, whichever. You see what I mean? Balance. And like with a case, like with a mystery, balance is needed. When it comes to hearing different opinions, different perspectives, balance is needed. When it comes to reacting and responding to certain claims and certain observations made, balance is necessary. That's what I mean. You get a family member, you get a friend, you get a highly emotional person that comes in, they might be biased. They might not be able to make the correct judgments, the correct calls. You get a psychopath that comes in that's focused and not softy, nicey, touchy, and just sees it for how it is, straight to the point. Then, you know, there could be a bastard, there could be a prick, as Ellen would say, you little prick. But, you know, there might be a high chance of success. This is what I've always said, and like with the Kenny Veach case, just on a general scale, when you've got somebody, an outsider, who is on the outside looking in, that's better and more efficient than somebody on the inside looking out, trying to make sense of everything. Okay? So, as said, leave your comments down below if there are any points missing or issues. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.